also the sheriff here. We expect that to be a big crowd. So when you get the notice, RSVP, because we might have to limit that one, depending on how many people sign up. Okay, so what we came for, the supervisor candidates. This is District 1 that I captured, so you can see the area covers Riverside, March Air Reserve Base, Meade Valley, Paris. And these are our 4 candidates that are here today. Gracie Torres, Richard Roth, Debbie Walsh, and Jose Medina. And they will be speaking to us. The way this is going to work, we're going to give them each 3 minutes to introduce themselves and what they're going to do for us as candidates. Then we've got a couple of questions that we already sent them based on the group, and we're going to let them answer those and give them about 1.5 minutes to answer those. And then we're going to open it up to questions from the group, and then we'll give them 3 minutes to close at the end and summarize up. So if there's anything they weren't able to complete in their 1.5 minutes in a question, they can do it in the summary. So does that work for the candidates? I guess they don't have no choice. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll start with just the list that we've got. Gracie Torres, you can come up first for 3 minutes and tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Well, hello everyone. My name is Gracie Torres. Thank you so much for being here. You know, I'm going to touch on something that he said earlier about, you know, the city or the county puts together these public meetings, and it's generally not the public, right? It's not residents that get together. It's developers, stakeholders, staff that gets together and they listen to each other talk about certain development, and that's been a huge frustration. A little bit about myself. I grew up here in Riverside, have lived in the same general area, I'm a proud product of Riverside Unified School District Schools, RCC, and then I studied at Cal State San Bernardino, chemistry and biochemistry. Chemistry and biochemistry, and I have a master's degree in environmental chemistry, doing a doctorate at Cal Baptist University in public administration. But this is my home. I'm raising my kids here, and in 2018 I got the opportunity. Someone retired, sort of like this race. Someone retired, and I had the opportunity to run for Western Municipal Water District. Huge learning curve. I'm actually a water chemist by trade, have done everything in the last dozen years that you can possibly think in water. I've tested it in a test tube. All the way to now, I actually work on federal grant funding for flood control projects and mitigation projects in our area. So I'm very familiar with the public works and infrastructure process. But at the water district, one of the first things, just to be very transparent, one of my very first votes, I'm really excited on my way to my meeting, and I get a call from a developer, and they're like, hey, this really cool development's coming up, and everyone loves it, and I'm like, all right, cool. At the time, the water district was just selling land, and I voted for it. Not 2 minutes I get into my car leaving that meeting, I start getting phone calls from community members, and they're like, how dare you? How dare you? And I was like, thrown aback, brand new at my job. And I learned from that day on that my job is to speak for you, not the other way around. I'm not here to tell Mission Grove Neighbors Association what I think is best as your supervisor. My job is to listen, take it back, and make decisions that way. We might not always agree, which is okay. But again, I'm here to speak for you. I work for you. And I've taken that lesson and I've applied it to everything I've done at the water district. One of the biggest and things that I'm proud of is I was the only board member at Western Municipal Water District to vote against the rate increase. 12% increase. Businesses were asking me to vote against it. Of course you were asking me to vote against it. Those of you that are Western customers were asking me to vote, and I did. And people came at me, don't you understand? Of course I understand. I work for a government agency. I understand that when there's more money in our pockets, it's good for us. But we are hurting. Over the last decade, the state has gotten worse and worse, right? Our taxes have gone up everywhere, right? The cost of living is hard. Those of you that have kids, raising their kids, or those of us raising families are struggling. Home affordability is not a real thing, right? We're crippled with student loan debt. We're trying to inch in an area that had so much promise. Riverside County had so much promise. We're good on
You're
my
over,
time?
yeah.
But I'm almost done. It had so much promise. And I want to be at the Board of Supervisors level. I want to continue the work that I've done at Western Municipal Water District so that we can mitigate those things. The county doesn't have to suffer because of bad decisions made at the state level. We need to be able to mitigate those things. I've done it locally. I'm your local girl. I'm here, have a home field advantage, but I'm happy to take your questions. My name is Gracie Torres. I hope to earn your vote tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Richard Roth. Flew down here this afternoon suddenly, canceled all his meetings at the Senate.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to represent you in Sacramento as your state senator. We have a little $68 billion budget deficit to deal with up there. But it came down because, frankly, it's always been true for us and for my team. Constituent issues and the issues down here are the most important. I lived in Riverside, came to Riverside in June of 1978. Air Force officer, March Air Force Base. That was my last active duty assignment. Served 32 years, retired. Was a lawyer in town, came to town after the National Labor Relations Board in the end of 1980. Managed law firms here, did a variety of community things. Had never run for anything in my life until 2012 when I was asked to run for the newly redistricted state Senate seat. And I agreed to do so because we've been advocating for a medical school at UCR for years. And I thought it was an opportunity after the governor took it out of the budget, Governor Brown, to try to do that. And so I ran on healthcare and a variety of other issues, transportation and the like. Was fortunate to be elected by voters like you. Went to Sacramento. The first year we got the medical school. A couple years later, when I chaired the Education Finance Committee, we got $100 million for a new medical school building at UCR. We now have $25 million or so for a new physician assistance program at Cal State San Bernardino and the Western and the Eastern Riverside campus out in Palm Desert. But those are the things that I've been working on. It's been a privilege to represent you. I know there are issues here. Look forward to your questions, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Debbie Walsh.
Hi everybody. Actually I came out here in 1986. I wanted to raise horses. A lot of people have been doing that here. But anyway, as soon as like a few years later, I got a notice in the mail from the county, and they were trying to change the zoning across the street from me, actually did, to put warehouses in. This was back in 1986. So there's a problem here, and that's something I've been fighting for well over 20 years. And that's one of the reasons that I'm actually going in trying to be a county supervisor, asking for your vote. And I appreciate everybody that is here today. But that's something I've been doing for quite some time. I did work for a county supervisor, Bob Buster, and that was back in 2008 to 2013. So for 5 years I worked for him, and I did get a lot of experience there. But the only reason I'm actually running is because I want to like a lot of changes there. They need a lot of changes. And that's one of the things that they're happening right now. We see a lot of homelessness. We see a lot of brush on the side of the road. We see fires continually over and over again. And we only have 3 minutes, so I won't go into that too much. But anyway, it did say something about voter integrity was one of our questions. And we had Rebecca Spencer, who's our registrar of voters, and she didn't even do a good job for like, I don't know how many years, but 10 or 15 years. So why didn't they get rid of her, you know? But at any rate, that was a problem we still have. The machines that they have, frankly, it's not the machines that are a problem. I think it's the fact that they're not using them properly. Having the people that actually own the machines have them attached to the internet, that should never be. That should never happen. So that's something that needs to still change. When I went in to get my candidate information, the people that were actually working there, the staff, didn't know their job at all. I never did get the data information correct. So that is a huge problem. If the data that they have for the people that are registered to vote is not accurate, then I think it needs to be checked out. That's something that really needs to be checked out. Okay, that's just my thing. But anyway, I did at the last election get 2 ballots. I don't know how many people did, but I did give mine over to Chad Bianco. I'm sure there's a lot of people, because he was checking into it, that have the problem with too many ballots being sent out. So that's the biggest problem, is that voter integrity is not there yet. We have a huge problem. And the warehouses, they need to be, if I was a supervisor, I definitely would put a moratorium on them. I would definitely do something about all these warehouses. And just recently, the county, in December, without even telling anybody, the last minute, just before Christmas, tried to change the general plan, foundation element, and that would actually allow warehouses, the change of zone, to allow warehouses outside of the industrial corridors. It's countywide. And so zoning that's agriculture or rural or housing or anything else could actually be changed to industrial. And that's something we actually put a stop to. Thank you.
You got to talk about that.
They'll get some time to answer both of those questions here shortly. Okay, last but not least, Mr. Medina.
So I am Jose Medina, 50-year resident of Riverside. Came to the area as a student when I was 18, 19 years old. Graduated from UC Riverside in 1974. My children, I was married here, raised my children here, and now I'm a proud grandfather of 2. Spent 10 years in the State Assembly, honored to serve with Senator Roth, and together we brought many resources to this area, and proud of that work, including the UCR School of Medicine, the Cheech Museum, Arata House, many accomplishments I think that we did together in Sacramento. Happy to be here with you. What an example of direct democracy. You know, I wish that more people were as engaged as you are. Sometimes we see people who don't even know that elections are coming. At this juncture in our history, I think it takes office holders, elected officials who have courage to make hard decisions, courage not to be beholden to any one group or ideology, but the courage to look at issues clearly and use our best intelligence to make good decisions for communities. In my campaign, I have 3 issues which I am focusing on: homelessness, health, mental health, and infrastructure. And I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Okay, like I had mentioned, we had 2 questions that we sent the candidates. Debbie already spoke a little bit about both of them. So now we're going to give the candidates a minute and a half to talk about these 2. The first one was, both of these were sent in by members of our group. As a concerned voter, I've recently encountered discrepancies in the Register of Voting reports regarding the number of persons' votes cast in the last election cycle. How do you view these discrepancies, and if elected, what steps will you take to address and ensure the accuracy of reporting in-person votes, and just the voting situation as it is with mail-in ballots creates a whole bunch of issues as it is. So we're going to ask the candidates to respond to that. So we'll start this time next down the list with Mr. Roth, and let him go first.
Integrity in the voting process is important to all of us, voters and elected officials, frankly, whether you win an election or you don't win an election. I'm not particularly familiar with the discrepancies, if they do exist locally at the Riverside County Registrar of Voters, but if discrepancies exist, then they need to be investigated. If criminal conduct is implicated, cases need to be turned over to the district attorney for criminal investigation. If criminal implications are not there, then the Board of Supervisors and the Registrar of Voters absolutely has a responsibility to investigate discrepancies and develop a plan of action if discrepancies are identified. If the discrepancies significantly affect the impact of the election, a different plan of corrective action needs to be in place, but any discrepancy needs to be investigated and a plan of action proposed and a plan of action implemented to correct discrepancies so we have complete integrity in our election process. That's why we have a Secretary of State in California to monitor and manage elections on a statewide level. That's why we have registrars of voters in every single county. If we don't have integrity in our elections, then the voters don't trust the process and they don't trust the candidates that are elected. So if I happen to be elected to the Board of Supervisors, I will absolutely ensure and make sure that our voting process has integrity and that the results are the results you can trust. Thank you very much.
Okay, Debbie, you're up next. You can talk some more about this.
Yes. So for quite a few years, I have felt that the election process hasn't been quite right. But it has actually gotten much worse recently when one of the ladies that worked at the Register of Voters, and she worked in the area where they had the candidates. But when I got the actual data, there was people there from different counties, and not in my district, and the district was all, it had a lot of problems, but I had to go back 2 times and I still didn't get the accurate information. So I feel that there's still a lot of problems there with the Register of Voters, and I did notice that the Secretary of State was, some of their staff was going in there. I think that's what has to happen, is possibly the Secretary of State, maybe look into that. Of course, the Board of Supervisors has actually fired the Register of Voters, but they actually have put in the person that was number 2 in charge, which I still feel that still is not adequate. So it still, there still needs to be an investigation into that, that process. I know that the mail-in ballots are an issue because they sent out quite a few extra ones, and also there's other problems with the election process. But definitely the Board of Supervisors can start an investigation into that. They can do coupons and things to check it out. They can contact the Secretary of State also to make sure the process is done correctly. Thank you.
So you know we have the candidates' websites, and we'll list those when we send out, so you can all go to their websites and get more information on all of them. So, Mrs. Medina, you're up next.
When I first came up here, I mentioned courage and the courage to address difficult issues. I was first a candidate and first ran for office in 1989 here in Riverside County when I won election for the Garupa Unified School District and won the first time running. I then ran for state assembly twice unsuccessfully, in 2000 and then 2010. So I've won elections and I've lost elections here in Riverside County. But I have never doubted the outcome of those elections. We have a process in place in California, in Riverside County, that you can ask for a recount when the election is close. And they go back and count those ballots and make a decision. And people win and lose elections by just a few votes, a handful of votes. But I know and trust that that process is valid and accurate. In our last presidential election, right, we had a group of people, including the President of the United States, who cast a doubt on the election results.
Hey, on there. Hey,
I say that it takes courage to speak the truth. And so when folks point to Dominion machines here in Riverside County, I say not true. I have faith in our process. If there were discrepancies, I'm sure that they should be investigated. But as someone who's run since 1989, won and lost elections, I have faith in the process in the state of California and Riverside County.
thank you.
We need to be respectful of the candidates, folks. It's a hard job running for office. It's a lot of work. And my hat's off to anybody that runs for office, whether I agree with their platform or not. In today's environment, it's time consuming, it's a struggle for your family and everything, and it's very difficult in today's environment with all the different mediums and medias that are out there. So we need to have respect. Okay, so last, Gracie.
Okay, well, this is a great question. Sorry, I'm obviously too tall but too short for different. But this is actually a great question. While I want to be a firm believer in the system that allows us to raise our voices, I also believe that concerns, like I mentioned before, that come from the community are incredibly valid. We don't just see things happen. There's patterns or patterns or just history that where we start to notice things like these discrepancies. As county supervisor, one of the things that I'll make sure that happens is that there's an ad hoc committee formed in order to investigate these discrepancies and ensure that in-person voting continues to be an integral part of the voting process. It's important. I still vote in person. My parents still vote in person. We want to make sure that everyone's casting one ballot. There's one vote per person. Also, there needs to be an independent hiring committee or commission for the registrar of voters. Although right now they are appointed by the Board of Supervisors, ultimately, who is their boss? The people that they're supposed to ensure there is and I'm not saying that there's been, obviously she was fired, but there I don't know, I don't work there, I work for flood control. Ask me issues there, we can talk about that. But there needs to be an independent hiring committee or commission for that's such an important role, which is the registrar. So that's my answer. Thank you for the question.
Okay. So we'll start with the next question with Debbie. This has to do with the warehouses. What policies do you plan to champion to address the extraordinary growth of warehouses over the past 10 years in the Inland Empire as a whole, not just here? The projected doubling in footprint over the next decade and the associated issues such as encroachment and communities' negative effects on air quality and increased truck traffic, as well as displacement of more valuable land uses for higher paying, higher quality jobs. So, Debbie?
Well, I've been actually fighting for that for about 25, 30 years now. So, anyway, I'll try to, I guess. So anyway, the problem, of course, with the Board of Supervisors is they're beholden to the developers, and that's where the problem comes in, which I'm not. Sorry. So that's where the problem comes in. We have the zoning, we have the general plan, we have a lot of people that take a lot of time to invest in making that, the general plan work for us. I worked on the RCIP plan, I worked on the community plans, and worked on a lot of different plans to try to address these issues. But unfortunately, we have times when the county goes through and undermines the general plan, I guess I'll call it like that. And we, as people that live in the area, have to take and announce that, email everybody, let everybody know that we can, that there's an issue coming up. And that happened in December. I think I brought that up already. But that's a huge problem when the county supervisors, some of them didn't even know about it, come through, the planning department comes through and tries to undermine the actual general plan of the county and change it without anybody knowing about it. And that's my biggest problem, I think, is that has to stop. We have to have transparency in government. That is the biggest concern. And that is something I will definitely change. I will put a moratorium on these warehouses. They are not going to come into our communities, our rural communities. They're going to stop. And I've addressed it. I don't even know if I can say that too much. But anyway, I've addressed it quite a few times. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Medina, you're up next.
In my 10 years in the state legislature, I introduced one bill having to do with warehouses. I introduced a bill in the assembly that for more transparency, so that the subsidies that cities give to the warehouses for coming would be reported, so that there would be accountability. So when warehouses come and they promise X amount of jobs, I wanted to make sure, or at least be able to have the numbers reported for what jobs were created. What was the effect? What was the wages? Unfortunately, that bill didn't get passed. I've also fought in the state legislature to make sure that the revenue created by the warehouses in our area stay in our area. Because it's us who, as you say in the question, suffer from the bad air, from the congestion, from the truck traffic, from the use of roads. So I have always fought and would continue to make sure that's the case. As far as what would we do, what would I do as supervisor? I would make sure that folks who make the decisions respect the resources of our area. I went yesterday to Orange Terrace Park, and I saw the area that you were describing of where that warehouse is planned to be put. And I do believe in conserving our natural resources, our natural open space, and so one of the things that I would do is respect that as a supervisor. Thank you for the question.
Okay. Gracie.
I actually wrote down something for this because I'm very passionate about it as an environmental scientist and chemist. I actually serve on the board of the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice. This is an issue that I take personally. Quite frankly, none of us, I'm assuming, none of us moved into the Inland Empire with such a beautiful view of a beautiful city just to see a wall and as our view. Right? No, nobody did that. And while the logistics industry is important, you'll hear things like it helped us sustain jobs during the pandemic. The reality is they're not good paying jobs, right? They come as fast as they go. And what we need here is job creation that is sustainable so that the 30% of people that commute outside of this county can actually live, work, and thrive here. That's what we need. We need our economy to grow here, and it's not happening with the logistics industry. Warehouse growth comes down to proper land use, zoning, planning, and working with the community to learn more about the process while enhancing, noticing, while putting in setbacks, and quite frankly, just putting it in places where they belong, and they don't belong in our neighborhoods. I think that's part of the question. We're encroaching on what people came to live and retire and look out of their window and see the big, beautiful lights and view. They don't want to see a big wall, right? And I think I mentioned this when I started. Absolutely more community involvement. Making sure that you are heard, that you feel heard when it has to do with your homes.
Mr. Roth, I think you're the last one for this question.
Thank you. You know, I wasn't part of the decision, but warehouses, in fact, have exploded over the last 10 or 15 years in local government's quest for jobs for our region and to keep people employed. And it is true that during the pandemic, the logistics industry actually sort of, in part, saved our region by keeping people employed and giving them the opportunity to put food on the table. But that's no excuse for the way it was handled. Hindsight's always 20/20, of course, but not enough attention was paid to where these places were sited. Not enough attention was paid to the adverse impacts, environmental and otherwise, air, transportation, damage to our roads and streets, as it should have been. You can't unring the bell, so what we need to do right now with respect to stuff on the ground is leverage the CARB facility, Air Resources Board, the AQMD, to put restrictions in place so we keep our air clean or get it cleaner, and we mitigate the transportation impacts on our roads and streets. On a go-forward basis, what we really need to do, the city and the county, and if I'm on the board, I'm going to work on this, the cities in the county need to work to leverage the medical school, the healthcare industry in the area, the current facility, the research and development that's going there to drive high-tech jobs and high-tech industry here to occupy the space that we have left instead of putting more warehouses on the ground. Frankly, I think the transportation infrastructure is going to limit that anyway because we can't expand the 60 freeway. We're jammed up on the 91 215, so at some point they can't go anywhere. Thank you very much. Look forward to working this issue when I'm your supervisor.
Okay, those are the questions that we have. We will now take questions from the audience. You have the other mic over there? Okay, so what we will do. So we use these mics for the questions and then have the candidates come up here and respond. You can ask a question to one of the candidates or all the candidates. Please keep your questions as distinct as possible. This isn't a time to give a big opinion about something. Just ask them a question so they can answer. We'll give them a minute and a half, like we did before, to answer. And like I said, you can have all the candidates answer or one of the candidates. It's up to you. We got one right over here, Brian.
Thank you. So that last answer by Senator Roth really impressed me. Was what I wanted to ask when I came here tonight. It's about the sort of the warehousing issue. I'm not a fan of warehouses, but I also don't demonize them. But I think the issue is we need to have a broader plan and look at it not just as more or less warehouses, but how do we mitigate any negative effects. And I love the idea of bringing in tech and medical type jobs. As a matter of fact, towards the beginning of the pandemic, I had an idea which I was planning to run by our mayor, Patricia Locke Dawson, because I think that she's involved with economic development. But we have the March JPA, and it seems to me that...
You have a question in there?
Okay, well, I do. But I just wanted to...
Timer on you here.
Okay, so it seems like we should be able to bring a lot of sectors together to do something like bring in medical pharmaceutical manufacturers into our area. We have warehousing, we have the air and rail and big rig transportation, and maybe the partnership with the state to have at a minimum some sort of sector that we can depend on, rather than as we had at the beginning of the pandemic, waiting for vaccines from the snow and ice of New England. So how does anyone have, any of the candidates, have a big idea of how we can bring together all of these different sectors to address the problem, rather than yes warehouses, no warehouses, yes big rigs, no big rigs, etc.
Okay, I'll stand here. I don't want to get in the way. So that's a really good question. I just want to talk about a little bit that I did on the water board, and I'm looking at the timer now. I actually, during the pandemic, I created a nonprofit, a workforce development nonprofit, to one of the sectors that are great careers, that need recruitment, that is seeing a retirement wave coming very soon, losing historical knowledge, losing valuable workers, that doesn't have a pipeline or a way to get into that industry, especially not here in the Inland Empire. So we created a nonprofit that is training, certifying, and placing candidates into the workforce. And there is so much opportunity. There is a lot of state funding. There's a lot of state funding to do so. Hasn't came our way yet. This is one of the first times that this has happened here in the Inland Empire. But there's opportunity in electric vehicles and its maintenance. There's a lot of opportunity in medical device. And there's also just a lot of opportunity if you're looking at green and renewable energy. A lot of jobs. The problem is we don't have pipelines to train, certify, and get people placed into these jobs. And that would mitigate a lot of the impacts from the warehouses and put us into a just transition into good paying careers that we can live, thrive, and work here in Riverside County.
Okay, go ahead, Richard.
If you think about it, when you take a look at the CARB facility at $417 million or so, and the UCR Medical School complex and all that goes along with that, that's probably almost $400 million in funding. And then you take a look at the $500 million or more on the state side that we put into workforce development in the healthcare, particularly in some of the tech workforce development programs. This is easily more than $1 billion enterprise here. The problem is economic development has been somewhat siloed between cities and the county, and people competing back and forth. We are just now, with the city of Riverside and the county of Riverside, seeing a magnificent effort with respect to the OMEO, I think that's how you pronounce it, electric bus manufacturing company that's going to bring manufacturing right here to this region with at least 70 employees. That's the first example. It's a great example of what the Air Resources Board Research and Development Facility is going to do for our region. We need more of it. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected as your supervisor, I intend to convene a joint county-city working group or tiger team to really ramp this process up, recruit research and development, high-tech, air, pollution, energy companies to come to town. And then we're going to work on the biotech. It's a little more difficult because biotech centered largely in Orange County and most particularly in San Diego County, and they prefer the beach, and we don't have a beach up here. But we're going to convince them that our land is cheaper, our workers are better, and we're going to bring them up here. It's going to take a little time, but I am confident that we can do it. The city of Riverside has proven that it can do it in conjunction with the county. We're going to make this happen, and we're going to supplant these logistics industry warehouses and do something better, higher tech, higher quality, higher paid, right here in Riverside County. Thank you.
Oh, and we will have a beach here once the big earthquake hits.
Actually, I used to work for a Bobbuster, and that was from 2008 to 2013. And I went to hundreds and hundreds of meetings where we actually did what Senator Roth was talking about. I don't know what happened after I left, but we did have an EDA. It was very, very, it had all kinds of different manufacturing going on, and we brought a lot of companies here. And then all of a sudden, it was a lot easier to just go in and say, well, just approving a warehouse. It only takes like, what, a few months for the walls to go up and everything else? And that's what's happened. We have county supervisors, and I'm not saying all of them, we have county supervisors that have said, oh, well, that's all that's coming to see us. So why aren't they going out and finding these people in like in Orange County, LA County, San Diego County? There's plenty of manufacturing places where they can bring the people here. And we used to have meetings all the time with the EDA. We had hundreds of meetings, like I said, and we were bringing in people from all different counties around here. And then, of course, we had the COVID incident. But after that, you know, things could have come back. We had one warehouse. I said, well, we can make this into a shopping center or a warehouse. It was an overlay. So what happens? The developer says, well, it's a lot easier for us to just put a warehouse in. We could have put a beautiful, huge, beautiful facility in there, shopping for everybody, and jobs and everything else. But no, it didn't happen. We tried everything we could to do it. But this is what's happening. They're just changing the commercial zoning into warehouses. It's a lot easier for them. We're not creating any jobs. And I will definitely go back and get the ADA going again. Thank you.
I agree with much of what has been said. The warehouses that are here are not going anywhere. They're staying, whether we like it or not. I chaired the Committee on Higher Education for 8 years in the State Assembly. And as the chair of higher education, I got to visit places like Irvine, San Francisco, where they do have the research going on, right? In conjunction with UC Irvine School of Medicine, UC San Francisco School of Medicine. I very much agree with that idea of bringing those kind of businesses and technology here to our area. And we can do that if and when we expand the UCR School of Medicine to include a UC hospital so that our healthcare is also equal to the healthcare that is experienced in Orange County or Los Angeles, like UCLA Medical School or UC Davis. So let's work on both. Getting the UC Riverside Hospital and bringing in that kind of research here to the area that would create more high-paying jobs and not all the reliance on logistics and warehouses.
Okay, see who else has a question. Okay, just a question this time, okay?
Real quick. Okay, if you don't mind, just go ahead and go back up there. I'll direct this first at you, and then I'd love to hear Senator Ross answer. But obviously, a lot of people are aware that Riverside has a homeless problem. Most people might not be aware that we have the detention center downtown, and we get, prisoners or tribe people from other cities and stuff, and then they get released and they're all over the streets. Then we have the mental facility over by the Tyler Mall. And it seems like we're collecting in the city of Riverside, because I'm concerned about my city. People that, from other cities, so what would be your approach to, let's say, get facilities in Temecula or the desert and maybe opening up another floor in Indio to house some of these prisoners so that we're not getting it, because I'll be honest with you, I hate to elaborate, I'll go over to Moreno Valley before I go to the Tyler Mall because I feel safer over there, and I live right in the middle, and it's hurting our business to have so many homeless all over the street. And hi, Chuck.
I wasn't sure if I understood the question. Was it homelessness or?
What are you going to do to get facilities in other cities that will take the people from their own city in instead of shipping them to Riverside?
Okay.
Was he insinuating that Chuck was one of the homeless? I don't think so.
I was on my way to watching a soccer game going to San Diego, and I stopped on the way to see one of the other cities along the way and how they approach homelessness. And I was impressed with what they were doing. They had a coordinated effort of law enforcement, social services, and nonprofits going out together at the same time, going on the street, something like Long Beach does, right? And those look like the effective ways of at least trying to address homelessness and doing the best that we can. I think the governor's effort along those lines and to reverse the trend of just putting people who have dependency on drugs and mental illness to allow them to stay on the street, to go back perhaps to some of the ways and things that we had previously, where if you had mental condition, you might have to be in a facility. So I would support both of those approaches.
He's gonna bite you.
Well, I will say this, I'm not there, but since 2019, it's my understanding that the County of Riverside has put up well over 500 beds, community residential, substance abuse treatment facilities and the like across the county. More than this county, more than all of the other 57 counties combined. So as your supervisor, I will continue that effort to make sure we have a robust presence in the community and residential treatment area. What we don't have are sufficient acute care inpatient beds, because what you see with the homeless on the street often is they're in severe mental distress. There's no place to put them. We have 77 public beds for the entire county of Riverside, 2.5 million people. We have 12 beds for kids 12 and over, and no beds for kids under the age of 12. That is outrageous. So when a homeless individual in severe mental distress is picked up on the street, they're warehoused in our acute care general hospital. Prop 1, I was proud to be the principal co-author of the Behavioral Health Infrastructure Act. It's going to be Prop 1 on the March ballot. I had to strong arm the governor on this, but we put $1.5 billion into that 6.4 total billion bond bill, 1.5 billion to go to the locals to construct additional behavioral health infrastructure, specifically acute care inpatient psychiatric bed capacity. So as your supervisor, I'm going to grab a bucket full of that money and we're going to build at least a 100-bed acute care inpatient psychiatric hospital at the University Health System campus in Moreno Valley to temporarily take care of those people, stabilize them, and then transition them into the step-down facility. So, sir, I think that will address your problem when we are successful.
Great. Thank
I think that the question is that the city of
Stand up,
Riverside
Debbie.
has a it has a disproportionate amount of care facilities, and that is causing a lot of the homeless people to be out at night all over the streets. I think everybody that's been out in Riverside is fearful. They come out darting all over the place, and you almost feel like you're going to run over somebody. And so that was the biggest problem I see. You need more resources outside of the city of Riverside, where they can, the sheriff, I understand, can take them, because they come in and they're only there for a limited amount of hours, say 3 or 4 hours, maybe one day, and then they end up back on the street again, and that's where the issues are coming in. So there needs to be a better approach to bringing in facilities where these people that need help can go maybe to Moreno Valley, maybe out to, like you said, Temecula, Murrieta, or Menifee, or, just have it so that there's more facilities, so when they pick these people up, that they don't all end up in Riverside. I think that's where the big problem is. And that is something that definitely the county supervisor can make those changes. It's not that difficult. We work with the sheriff, we work with the DA, we work with everybody. So that's where the issues come in, and the county supervisor also has all the resources, public health resources, to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that. It's a great question. The last thing I want is for you to stop shopping at the Tyler Mall. A lot of what was said today, it's a huge issue. Working at flood control, we deal with it at the river bottom, and quite frankly, there's two bigger issues than just where can they go, right? One of them is that our tax dollars are going to executives, so we have a top-heavy county. They're going to executives, funding their pocket, funding their salaries, which is fine if we were ensuring that the same amount was going to the people that are on the ground taking care of our unhoused population. So there are nonprofits that are out there every day trying to provide them the services, the beds, the different facilities, and trying to get them help, right? We have the law enforcement that is out every day ensuring that we feel safe. And then we have the social services, the county services that are all underfunded, under-resourced, and that's where the problem is, right? Is that the way we are spending, in the last 5 years, 5 years, billions of dollars have gone to contracts that are doing other things, building websites, building programs, creating documents, but not addressing the issue on the ground. That's the first one. And the second one, which I think was your question directly, is how do we make sure that other cities are kind of taking care of themselves, right? We need to work in these regional partnerships that we ensure when we're doing these homeless counts, they're not getting picked up, moved here in the city of Riverside or in the city we belong, but we take care of them at home. That is very important and vital to ensuring that we stay safe, but that we're also taking care of our unhoused neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more question. We got time for one more quick question.
Hi, good evening. My name is Harrison Hubline, and I moved up to the Mission Grove area 3 years ago. But I participated in the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Committee and a couple other things. My question for the supervisors, looking at the Press Enterprise article, $1.8 billion in debt pension for the county. And obviously, the only way really county supervisors the way of making money is either selling land or raising property taxes. Two different ways of revenue stream here. So the challenge here is obviously land use. It sounds like it's a general use plan, because even the city has a general use plan, but what are your efforts to try to take down our debt pensions? Senator Roth talked about the state debt that he's working on today. So there's a debt out there. So we got to figure out a way to bring it down. So I'd like to hear your ideas on how to take use and bring down our debt for the county.
Try to answer. Sure. These are private industry doesn't have defined benefit plans anymore, but state government, local government does. Probably here to stay. Defined benefit plans are not like a 401k. They're not typically 100% funded. There's a funding level where the plan sustains itself because the benefits, the money that current employees pay in fund the retirement benefits of those that have already retired. It's a sustainable model as long as the percentage is right, whether it's 80 or 85%. I'm not the finance person, but there's a level. That doesn't mean that it's good to have pension debt. And county government needs to be efficient and effective. County government needs to build reserves to cover pension debt in downtimes and be able to pay down the debt as resources in the county permit. Because obviously the more funding, the better it is. And so I think boards of supervisors and individual supervisors need to make sure that we conserve, we save to have a rainy day fund like the state does, and that we pay down the pension debt, the wall of debt, I guess, local, as we can. But I don't think it's time to panic just because someone says that the Riverside County has, you know, $1 billion in pension debt, because it's a defined benefit plan and they have never been 100% funded, or at least rarely so. So, Harrison, I think that's my answer. I think we need to try to lower it. Some cities have been able to do so in this time, but I'll work on it if I'm your supervisor.
I'm sure I couldn't answer that question any better. I would just say that as the son of a federal employee, my father retired from the federal government, and my mother retired from the state government. I know how hard our public employees work, and that sometimes they don't make as much money as they do in the private sector, and so they certainly deserve the retirement that they've worked for their whole lives. But I can't answer that question any better than Senator Roth.
That's a great question. Thank you so much for your question. And as somebody that is working on my own little fund at the county, I see how important it is for those that have dedicated all their time, just like Assemblymember Medina said, that have dedicated their time to build up this little egg to make sure that they're able to use it when it's time for retirement. That being said, we do have a lot of debt. That's one of the things that keeps me up at night at the water district. But I know that because of the way that it's built, we got to ensure, one, that we protect it, we protect that nest egg, but also that we cut down on the funding, that whenever that there is any reserves or anything that is not being used. For instance, during COVID, we received billions, and we received a ton of money from the federal and state government that could have worked towards that. The city of Paris eliminated their debt. So it's doable, and it's doable soon. You just need somebody that's willing to do it and really to answer your request to do so. And we continue to protect those who have been working towards receiving these pensions.
Yes, I agree. I think that county employees all deserve their pension, and it's every single city, in every county. Pretty much, if they have CalPERS, they have a debt. So the county supervisors have to work diligently to bring that debt down. And one of the biggest concerns right now, of course, is they're still not putting enough money in the reserves. And when the county, it was 2011 or 10, anyway, when we had the big crash, they did have enough in reserves to keep the county afloat. They had to do extreme measures. But currently, the county does not have enough money in reserves. It needs to put more money in reserves. If something does happen, then they can rely on that money to keep the county afloat. That's where we need to put it.
Okay, we've got about 8 minutes left, so we're going to give them each 2 minutes closing statements, and we'll start. We started with Gracie at the beginning, so we'll start with Mr. Medina. 2 minutes for any closing remarks.
Again, thank you for having us here today. 10 years in the State Assembly, 13 years on the RCC Board of Trustees, and first elected to the Aruba Unified School District. 34 years as a teacher here locally at Poly High School, and finishing my last year at Lincoln Continuation School. It was my honor to represent all of you in the California State Assembly in the 10 years that I was there. I mentioned our accomplishments. $201 million just to UC Riverside. Money that UCR deserved but didn't get before, because the formulas that have been used, as you probably know, across the board, whether it's for judges or UC, always worked for the disadvantage of our area. So $200 million to UCR specifically. Even when the governor called me and said, you know what, that money should go, I'm sorry, not the governor, the president of UC called me and said, that money should go to me, the president of UC. I said, respectfully, President Drake, no. The legislature, both the Senate and the Assembly, allocated that money directly to UC Riverside. UC Riverside got that money and is benefiting from $203 million. So I feel I have the experience to get things done, to accomplish things, to work across folks who have different ideas, to bring people together. I am thankful for representing you for the 10 years in the State Assembly. I ask for your vote come March for the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Debbie Walsh. Yeah, you're next.
Thank you very much, everybody that's here, for coming today. I appreciate everybody that's here. And my biggest concern, I think that's actually destroying this area, is the warehouses, the trucks that are going through our communities. And there are actually huge transportation trucking facilities illegally in Mead Valley, Good Hope area, and I'm sure in Paris also. But those need to stop. Those trucks are going everywhere. And that is the biggest concern I have. We also need to do something about the homelessness. There's a lot more homeless problems here in Riverside than there are in other areas. So there needs to be a better program to get those people help, and to make sure that when they're arrested, that they come from Menifee or whatever they come from, they're not dumped on Riverside. These people need care, but they also need to have programs in other areas instead of having it all in one area, pretty much. So that needs to change, and that's one of my biggest concerns also. The veterans are a big concern, because the veterans facility over on Orange Street, I actually went there because my husband was a veteran, and it's just a dilapidated little building. They don't have enough staff. I know that that's a very important thing to me also, and to everybody that's out here. I mean, there's a large number of veterans here. And the March Reserve Air Force Base, they're bringing all these different warehouses and projects in there, and Moreno Valley actually approved one right there on the landing strip. And there was a lawsuit brought on about that, because that jeopardizes, yeah, on the end. I can show you. But anyway, that's something that needs to stop. We cannot jeopardize the March Reserve Air Base with all these warehouses. It's something that needs to stop. That's something that's very big concerning. And also bringing in real jobs here to Riverside County. EDA hasn't done anything in years. So we need to bring back jobs here. Manufacturing jobs, there's no reason why along the industrial corridor, they can't bring in manufacturing jobs. And quit changing the zoning to bring in warehouses.
Mr. Wall.
Thank you. You know, it's been a privilege to represent you over the past almost going on 12 years. You know, I ran on the 3 R's, recognition, respect, and resources, because when I ran, we hadn't been getting any from the state of California. And over the last 11 plus years, you can look at the website, the team has delivered over $1 billion in resources to this particular Senate district. I'm running to continue my work that I've spent the last 11 years doing in Sacramento in the areas of transportation, health, mental health, housing, homelessness, and the rest. And I'm also running to bring whatever management skills I think I've acquired during my 32 years in the Air Force and my time managing law firms in inland Southern California and apply that to the County Board of Supervisors operations. Because, you know, unlike those of us in Sacramento and legislators, they don't let us manage anything in the legislature, and that's probably a good thing. But if you're a supervisor and you're on the Board of Supervisors, you are responsible for the operation of the county and the management of the county. You hire the CEO, but the buck stops with you. And I think I can do a good job. I'm hoping you give me the opportunity to do so. I look forward to continuing my service in Sacramento, representing you over the next 9 to 10 months. And after that, I look forward, with your support, to serving you as your next supervisor on the Riverside County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Hello, I want to start with just saying how special this group is. I've been watching from a distance as it forms, right? A lot of questions about what's going on around your community, and people just starting to come together, voicing their concerns, seeing where the similarities are, where the differences are, but being able to collaborate. But this is a result. This type of group is a result of people not feeling like they are heard by their elected officials. I'm someone that wants to change that. I feel like I've done that on the board of Western Municipal Water District, really putting emphasis on showing up for my community. One of the very first things that I tried to establish was a water advisory committee made of community members. Wasn't very popular with the rest of my board because elected officials aren't used to having to face those who elected them. I want that to change. As your Board of Supervisor, I commit to having an open door for you. Recently, I met with two of your members. We sat down at Western and we learned about why rates are this way. How come at-will letters are served? Not all the answers that we wanted to hear, but access was important to me, and it's been important to me. Like I said, I brought funding for workforce development. Didn't wait until I was elected to a higher office. I said, I have to do that now. We have to take action now. As far as I'm concerned, whether it's Western or whether it's at the county, I will have 4 years, and I promise you, unlike you've seen before, I will deliver more in that time in those 4 years than you have seen. In my 6 years of experience as an elected official, I'm proud to say that I've started my own scholarship, that I've worked alongside nonprofits to ensure that we take care of those on the ground. I've advocated for the issues that matter to you, but most of all, I'm from the community and I'm for this community. Please vote for me on March 5th. Thank you.
Look how good we are. It's only 2 minutes after 8. Okay, I want to have all the candidates stand up. Let's give them a big round of applause.